Hello again, and welcome to the Master's Voice. I'm Celestial, and you are welcome to this channel. To old and new subscribers alike, you are very welcome. The Master's Voice is an audio and a visual resource that you can find on multiple platforms. I have podcasts on Odyssey, Podtail, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. So if you're a new person, I highly recommend the listening experience. It will free you up to do other things, but at the same time, you will still be able to get stuck into the prophetic messages that the Lord has been giving me here since the year 2012 until now, 2024. I have been stewarding these words of the Lord, writing them down and keeping them in trust until he spoke to me in May 2019 and told me to put up a blog. I set up the blog and I published the words, and I've been publishing them until that time, until fairly recently. Most of the new prophecies that you've been listening to since perhaps the latter period of last year are now only in video format, and that is because the video format is much faster and easier to get done than it is to keep putting up the words. But sometimes, at some point in the future, I will seek time from God so that I can be able to bring congruence between the written prophetic words and the audios. I have alternative backup channels on Rumble. That's rumble.com, brighteon.com, and bitshoot.com. And on those channels, you can get many of the prophecies that are no longer available here. YouTube took them down. I was not able to keep hosting them here. They were here for about 2 years. Most of those deal with the pandemic of 2020 and what the Lord was consistently saying through that time. So when you go to the alternate channels, that's where you'll be able to find most of the prophecies to do with the harm in the arm and the time that this nation, all the nations of the world, went through in 2020. There is also a Spanish language channel that you can find here. It is called Canal Profético, La Voz del Señor, and you can also find it on Rumble, BitChute, and Brighteon. And those channels on those other platforms are much more up to date than here. I have a prophecy from the Lord today. I have several prophecies, and as God gives me time, I hope to be able to make at least 3 of them today. But the first of them is from very recently. So you may have noticed the increased pace with which I am making these videos. That is because there is an increased urgency upon me from the Lord. You also would have noticed that many of the things that I spoke about several years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they're now starting to show up in the press. And the reason for that is because God is bringing all the things that he has said into final alignment. About a year ago, at the start of 2023, when I came back to the channel after taking what I thought was a permanent departure from the Master's Voice prophecy blog, the Lord is the one who sent me back. And at that time, I began to make the prophecies more and more as fast and as quick as I could. And at about the middle part of the year in 2023, the Lord spoke to me and the Lord told me, do not hold anything back from these people. Whatever I tell you, tell them exactly that. Now, it's not as if I was holding anything back in the beginning, but there are many things that God tells me personally as an FYI celestial. The Lord told me, if it is in your knowledge, if you know it and I've spoken it to you and it is the truth, tell them the truth. Do not hold it back for them. And even if you're a new person, if this is your first video, you need to understand that when God would speak to a prophetic messenger and tell them to lay the full of the message in the bosom of the people, this is because to the fullness of what you hear, number one, you will be held responsible for it. You will never be able to say, oh, I thought this. I see many people messing around with these prophetic words. I see them on every single platform because people keep tagging me on different platforms to see. I see many people messing around with these prophetic words and acting like they are a joke. You will come to Instagram and say, did she specifically say this specific thing by name? And then 3 people will come underneath and say, yes, she spoke about it. And another person will go and say, here's the prophecy. And then what that person says is, oh, I was just trying to check. So what you're doing is, you have no interest in knowing what it is that God has said. What you're trying to do is you're trying to stick your neck out for usually a music star or a pastor who doesn't know that you're alive. These people do not know that you're alive. They only know you through your bank detail numbers. When your ill-advised, ill-directed cash hits their monumental empires that they've been building off your deceived backs for the last 30, 40, and 50 years. So they don't know that you exist, but they know that they have an assignment from the Father and the Lord that they serve, because they have taken oaths to the devil to make sure that they tender him tribute. And the tribute that they've been taking to Satan for the last 30, 40, 50 years is you. The rock musicians of the United States have been handing over, those who like hard rock music, soft rock music, they've been handing over your souls and the souls of the children that you were carrying in your bodies by affiliating yourself with these various altars like Black Sabbath and whatever else. They've been handing you over in spiritual sacrifice for the last 30, 40, 50 years, however long the case may be. The pastors have been handing you over on altars of sacrifice, not only robbing you blind, which makes the devil laugh, because the devil is very skilled and very knowledgeable in all the promises of flourishing, thriving, and yes, prosperity that God has given his people. But Satan loves nothing better than to see you put your money on Tony Evans' altar, to see you throw your money on TD Jake's altar, to see it go on the altar of the younger warlocks like Marcus Rogers, Stephen Furtick, Mike Todd, and the rest of them. He loves to see you put your money on the altar of a newbie or a veteran, because once you sow into those altars, you come into covenant with these altars. Most of you do not understand that the reason you are like rabid wild dogs when you see these people fall is because the same spirit that is upon them is upon you. That spirit is a spirit of defilement. That spirit is a spirit of the darkness. And the reason that you howl like very upset wild animals when you see them fall is because the twin idolatry in you that is also inside of them is howling to see the end of an age. It's howling to see the end of an empire. Many of you are risking many things. The one soul that God gave you to look after, you're failing to look after it because you have come into affiliation with things that are dead. And now that God is simply putting the axe to the roots of the trees, as the Bible says, you howl because you think a healthy tree is being unfairly attacked. When the prophetic word comes a year in advance, 6 months in advance, 2 years in advance, you resist it. And you call it a lie. You call it a false prophecy. You call it that a person is trying to build up a name for herself on great and mighty men of God. What have you done for the kingdom of God, Celestial? And then I am silent and time goes by. And then when the idol begins to fall, you come completely forgetting that you said the prophecy was false, because you can no longer call it false because now it is in motion. Now it is in front of you. Now the prophecy has begun. As I always told you, it's begun to stretch its legs. When prophecy appears on the news, then it's not me who's doing it. It's out of all of our hands. Because one of the things that God has said to the Christian church is that he will allow the world to drag you. You must know that this is coming. You must know that the day is coming where all your Christian monograms, all your Christian chest pins, you'll pluck them off, because when the people in the supermarket even discern lightly that you belong to Jesus Christ, they will mock you, and they may even punch you in the face in the future, because the spirit that is in them will be boldly antichrist. It will be quite violent. You will never want someone to know that you love and serve Jesus Christ in the future, because they can pluck your eye out apropos of nothing. God will allow the world to take the church down. I told you that it is CNN and the other networks who will say, a pastor, in its own words, stepping down for sin. That's not my face on the news reports right now concerning the wolf in the pulpit, Tony Evans. For he is no pastor. He is no affiliates to the God, the one true King in heaven, that very few of us in the nation and very few of us around the world serve. God has very few children in the great mass of the false church. That's the world mocking him. That's the world with the fake face that I always told you looks concerned. And the minute the camera pans away, they laugh, for they are of the world. And the children of the world do love it when the children of the so-called God of America come flaming down in shame. You are risking your neck for a person who doesn't know you, for many persons who don't know you. And the reason you do this is because the darkness in them has had 30, 40, and 50 years to become a mirroring darkness in you. And so it is my job, and I'm constrained of the Lord to speak the truth but once. And if you hear me speaking this truth but once, 50 times, it will always be in a new prophecy that is doing nothing more than repeating all the prophecies that have come before. And when the Lord shall come on the back of the completion of these words and begin to perform them to this nation of the United States, first and foremost, and to every other nation who has disdained the messages and the warnings of God, let it never be said that you were not told the truth in advance. Today's prophecy is called Cameo. I received this word on June the 12th. And this is part of an ongoing series about the United States government that I have been covering for several years, ever since when I started writing the prophecies physically on the blog in 2019. God began to give me so many messages. And when you hear government, if you actually go back and look at it, in 2019, the United States was under a Republican president, ex-President Donald Trump. And then the years moved into 2021, and we became under a Democratic government, President Joe Biden, who is the current sitting president in this year, 2024, and the incumbent for the presidency in the 2024 elections. However, when God is talking about the government, God is rarely talking about the government that you visibly see, whether it is a red government or a blue government or whatever independents may exist. We hardly ever see them. God is always talking about a hand of control that is behind the scenes, that is controlling the United States government, that gives us the visible outcomes that we see. And so this dream that I saw made me so very uncomfortable in my sleep. It was a very difficult dream to see, not because it had scary monsters or anything in it. It was a difficult dream to see because there was so much what I would call spiritual intrigue, and definitely perhaps even witchcraft involved with this dream. When you're in these kinds of dreams, the presence is so heavy upon you that you would almost wish not to be present. You would almost wish not to be seen. Because when you are in these types of environments, the spirit of a person who is used to being around God can become so uncomfortable being around the visible outpush of the devil. And so God was basically showing me in this prophecy the split screen that has existed for decades. And I mean behind all the latest administrations that you would want to think of. This split screen is in Joe Biden's government. This split screen is in Trump's government. It was in Obama's government. It was in Clinton's government. It was in all the way back to the Nixons and the rest. This split screen is the reason that John F. Kennedy died before his time. America has a hand of power behind the visible hand of power. And the irony and the cowardice of the American people is this. They either do not believe that this split screen exists, that there is a government that they see visibly in the front, and then there is an entire enclave of power at the back. They do not believe this, and as a result, they are like dominoes that are constantly being knocked down by the decisions that the power enclave at the back makes. The power enclave at the back makes the decisions, calls the shot, and then the American people get kicked like 9 pins by the decisions. And as they're being kicked, they cry and complain and say, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And they always look back to the previous administration and say, it was better then. It was better then. They begin to have shuttered vision. They begin to overlook all the flaws of the government that came before. Why? Because they're suffering more now and they wish to go back. And that is how it has always been. So that is the ironic part. The stubborn part is that even when they see it, they deny that they see it. It has been ingrained into the American psyche, into the American brain, that the country is so great, so brave, and so free that it can never be overtaken from within. But America is like a dog treat that is already digesting in the acid of the dog. The dog has already eaten it. The dog treat is melting in the stomach acid of the dog that's already moving about its business. The American government is moving about its business. And God told me to tell you that you are already consumed, and all you're waiting for here in this country is to feel the effects of the acid. The acid hasn't completely melted the dog treat, which is the country that has been consumed by the dog. But when the acid begins to work on that dog biscuit, that is inside this demonic dog that has already routed this nation from within and taken away all the people's freedom. All you're waiting for now is the visible expression of the different laws that I have been telling you for years is coming. And God told me to tell you that you are already overthrown. You are already a casualty. You are already in chains. You have already lost your freedoms. You are already in the camps. You just don't know it yet. Because you continue to live in irony or defiance. We can never be overthrown. We can never have a coup. We can never have a civil war. All these things, they have been decided. They have been marked on various stages like X's. And now you are going to simply hear yet another prophecy, which is a look behind the scenes, a look behind CNN, a look behind Rachel Maddow, a look behind Tucker Carlson, a look behind Fox. You are simply going to be taken now again behind the scenes, because one of the things that God has said since Joe Biden won the election is that America is going to be like a soap opera. The exact phrase he used is, from now on, this country is going to run like a telenovela. It's going to constantly leave the people in the country on a cliffhanger, and they're going to be clutching their pearls and wondering what comes next, what comes next, what comes next. Remember, the prophecy says the TV will become the star of the home. The floods are battering Florida again. Exactly another year later. Since the April prophecy 2023, it came 10 days later, April the 2nd, April the 12th, the prophecy was fulfilled. Historic floods. Florida's going through historic floods, but what are Americans saying? It's not really the prophecy being fulfilled. I remember when I was a child, sometimes we would have to go to school by boat. This is what people are saying. And they will continue saying it until the same boat is floating all their family members to the nearest morgue. When the boat is not able to carry living people anymore because of the caliber of floods that are coming, the caliber of storms that are coming, the caliber of sinkholes, the caliber of lava that is coming. When we aren't able to say that we once rode boats to school because we're used to storms and they always happen in this area, and the boats are now floating, casualties. Even then, people will not change. They will still curse God, because that is the setting of the United States. The prophecy for today is called Cameo. Before I start, let me explain to you what a cameo is so that as you listen to the dream, it makes sense. The first and primary definition of a cameo is a small part or a role in a movie or a play. And that small part in the play or in the movie is always usually limited to one scene. It's always limited to just a single scene. So you'll see a character just once, they'll play in a certain scene, and then you won't see them again. So in, I think, a lot of these superhero movies, there was this man who is named Stan Lee, and he's quite a legend in the comic book world. And one of the things that people who like comic book movies about X-Men and Avengers and things like that, one of the things that they got used to and that they loved is seeing this man, Stan Lee, show up in these movies as different characters. And I don't know what Stan Lee looks like, but I just know because I have a friend who is a dedicated comic person. They wait or would wait to see Stan Lee show up in his movies, the writer of all the comics. Now the comics are coming to life. They would all wait during the movie to see who is Stan Lee going to be. And he would only show up in one scene of each of the movies, like a kind of Easter egg. We call it like a secret plot twist here. They would wait to see him, and then they would feel satisfied when they see him. So a cameo is often played by a distinguished actor or a celebrity. You can't cameo an unknown, because then it's not special. The whole point of a cameo being special is when you go, oh, they've got so-and-so here, and the person is on scene for maybe on screen for maybe 4 to 5 minutes, or they come on stage, they act one part, and then they go. That is the primary definition of a cameo. However, cameo has a second meaning. It is a small piece of a sculpture that is set on a stone, or that is shell cut in bas relief, whereby the outcome is one layer carved on top of a contrasting layer that serves as a background. This is a cameo. It is very easy to see because the front layer, which carries the image of the woman, is in a different color from the back layer, which doesn't really carry much of distinction. You can see that the back layer primarily serves to make the front layer more prominent, because the front layer is the one that actually carries the image, the picture, the curly hair, and everything. The tendency is to focus on the woman who appears to be most important and totally ignore the dark background. So now that you can see what cameos look like in real life, besides the fact that it usually refers to actors, you will now understand this prophetic dream that God gave me. When I woke up from this dream, here is what God said. He said it so urgently, as if he didn't want me to fall asleep and he didn't want me to forget the dream or forget what I had seen. He said, cameo, cameo, cameo. It's all going down now. Actors playing a role. It will all fall apart and the truth will be revealed. I'll say that again. Cameo, cameo, cameo. It's all going down now. Actors playing a role, but it will all fall apart and the truth will be revealed. And so here is my dream from June 12th. I saw people rushing at fever pitch inside the White House of the United States. So it was kind of, I didn't see myself. I wasn't physically there. It's just kind of in the movies where they bring the camera in and it's understood that the camera view is your view. So you never see yourself. So the camera swings in from outside and it kind of just zooms in and suddenly we're in the White House and it is pandemonium in the White House. There are people rushing by everywhere. Everybody is in this furious rush to get everywhere, bypassing each other. And sometimes the one that is passing by sees that the person passing by them is somebody that they've been wanting to talk to. Maybe they've been calling the office and dropping a, get back to me, Ted, get back to me, Ted. And Ted, being busy with whatever, has been thinking, oh, he keeps calling, I need to get back to him. And then Ted and the other guy see each other and they both go, oh, I was supposed to talk to him, but they still can't stop. So one goes, let's try to do lunch. And then the other one goes, yeah, call my people. And then they do that and then they rush off. So people are moving so fast and everybody seems to be moving with so much purpose that at times I see someone is rushing by with several binders clutched to their chest. And then papers slip out of perhaps a file or a binder that is improperly held. And people are going so fast, believe it or not, that instead of stopping to turn by and scrape up those papers, I see this woman, she's rushing with her binders, and then she drops a few, and then she's going and she goes, and then she turns back like she wants to get them, and then she goes, she kind of throws her hand like, forget that. And she leaves those papers lying there and continues rushing off. This is the fever pitch at which people are moving, as if time is too precious to waste on even picking up paper, even necessary paper, and they'd keep rushing down the particular hall where they were going. I saw I saw Vice President Kamala Harris in the halls of the White House. And at times she would take a stance in one center of what just looks like a room. And there would be like a very small dais there, very, very small dais, just a little raised whatever. She'd stand on the dais and then people would surround her and they would be asking, but Vice President, what do you think about this? And Vice President, what about this and what about that? And it's not press people. It's not press people from outside. It's just people from inside the White House. And they're asking her questions to try and get direction or something, and she's not answering. And then sometimes I would simply see her headed down a hall. She'd be going down a hall, and all these people will be following her, asking questions, but Kamala was acting like she could not hear the questions. Even when they managed to corner her, and she was standing on the dais to show that she was more elevated than them. Obviously, she has a higher rank than them. She is the vice president. She was simply looking at them with this small smile, and they would be asking. She would turn her head as if she's acknowledging the person who's talking, but she never answered. She never gave them an answer. And then at other times, I'd see her walking in this very nice, I don't know if it's camel or very pale tan. It was a mixture of the color camel, which is light brown, and also tan. She'd be walking down a hall, so I'd see her from the back, and all these people be rushing after her with notebooks and stuff, asking Vice President Kamala Harris this and this and this, Vice President, Vice President. And she would walk, but she would never acknowledge the people asking her a question. At no time in this dream did I ever see President Joe Biden anywhere. The presence of President Joe Biden was not indicative, in the dream, and I didn't see him physically at all. And then at a second part of the dream, I saw major players in the White House like a casting call. So I saw all of them gathered as if they were having a casting call. If you do not know what a casting call is, maybe it's your first time hearing about it. A casting call is maybe when they're about to do a movie, a play, or even a commercial, even a kid's play. A casting call is when they make an open call for actors and they will say, we are about to do a play like Hamlet, we're about to do Julius Caesar, or we're about to make this movie and we already have our big bankable stars, but now we're having an open casting call because we need the people to be waiters. We need the people to be the mom in the park who will be pushing her baby in a certain scene. Casting call is basically you're looking for talent. You're looking for talent. You're looking for actors. You're looking for stand-ins. You're looking for even the guy who's going to be getting water if you don't have that guy on staff. So a casting call is taking place in the White House, but at the same time, there's this rushing, high-paced environment so fast that at times the camera simply drops low and all I see are legs going this way versus legs going that way. Legs rushing left, legs rushing right, just to show how much urgency is in the scene. And in the background is the constant ringing of phones. Just ring, 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 phones ringing off the hook. Incessant phone calls, ringing, 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 until the secretaries who were in charge of answering them and dealing with the people on these phones could not keep up. In the midst of all this, there is the main players of the White House doing a casting call. And so just as I showed you the cameo in the beginning, God was showing me one dream on top of another dream, one scene on top of another scene. In the front part of this dream, besides the busyness and everything, the dream hones in on people calling the White House to ask after the major players and their availability for different things that are going on in America. The first and the main person who is being asked for is President Joe Biden. Is President Joe Biden going to do a press tour for this and that? Is President Joe Biden available to be the honored guest at this and that event? People were also calling to ask if Kamala was available. Is Vice President Kamala Harris available to come and open a very prestigious women's benefit? Is President Kamala Harris available to read to the children of this and that school for just an hour? It would mean so much to them. I also saw that on some of these phone calls, people were speaking in a very, very agitated and irritated voice because, and here is what one of them were saying, how come there has been no response to the gala dinner invite that's been sent out 2 months ago in cooperation with White House protocol? How come nobody has gotten back to us? We've had our gala planned for an entire year on the social calendar. And as the White House requires, or the White House would want, we made contact more than 2 months ago to ask if so-and-so person is available to come as a keynote to this gala. How come we haven't had any response? We need to know if so-and-so can be the keynote speaker or not, but we're not hearing anything back and we need to plan. And so these secretaries are fielding a lot of information flowing in from greater America. And I saw that the secretaries did not know what to tell people. They were being professional. They were definitely giving some kind of answer, as you will hear, and they were soothing people on the phone in some cases. They were being diplomatic, but in their office, there was absolutely nothing that they could do to answer the people on the phone. I saw them looking at blank work calendars where nothing had been noted. Some secretaries would look up at the work calendar and the work calendar is hanging there and there's nothing on it but the numbers and the days of the week and the month that came from the printer. Nothing is penciled into those big sections. Some of them had the flat desk planner. They would gaze down at it. There's nothing in it. There's nothing in these day-to-day, weekly binders and planners that most secretaries for powerful people have. And so I see them cast their gaze, but nothing has been noted there. Nothing had been scheduled. Nothing had been planned for. And yet these secretaries are here trying to sound knowledgeable as they could to calm down the sometimes agitated people who were rightfully asking for updates to their questions. Here's some of what the secretaries were saying. Look, you know these issues are important to the president. You absolutely know that. He's been talking about the need to lower prices from the start. You know the vice president is a friend of the Cancer Association. This is a long relationship that you don't need to question. It's a matter of when, not if, she'll get back to you. When she's better positioned, she'll be able to show her support in a way that is meaningful to you and lines up with her schedule. It's a busy time right now. It's a crucial time right now. Come on. You know that. And these secretaries, you have to hand it to them. They were experts at being able to field questions in a way that would make the people feel like they're very much part of the fabric of governance of the United States. You know that the Cancer Association is a long-standing primary agenda of this administration. Come on, you know that. And then the people would easily be soothed and get back into line. So these kinds of conversations are going on, and I see these women using tact, diplomacy, coaxing, and cajoling people. And in some instances, they're threatening people. Sir, you know she doesn't have to RSVP positively to this information, don't you? Just because you asked doesn't mean she has to come. Speaking of Vice President Kamala Harris. If this is the tone you're taking with scheduling, what makes you think she's going to respond in a positive manner? It's better to take the late date than not get a date at all. Now, do you want it or not? So I saw a lot of, and I'm doing quote fingers, rescheduling due to non-availability. Rescheduling due to non-availability. The people that were asking for certain people from the White House, certain people from the administration to be available for very important things were simply not available. The president is offering to reschedule with you due to non-availability. Would you like to choose a new date? The vice president is honored that you would consider her to chair this event, but we have to keep in mind the delicate balance right now. But in real life, the president, Joe Biden in this instance, was not offering to do anything. The president was not there. And he did not know about any date, new or old, for him to agree to do something on. He was noticeably absent from the building, and it was only Kamala that I kept seeing, striding down the halls with a trail of people following her like little ducks behind their mother. Now, these secretaries were worth their pay. I saw that they were smart, they were well trained, and they were able to work on their own steam in order to buy time about what to say. These women were skilled in holding the fort in the interim until they could speak to their bosses about what to do about new questions and repetitive questions piling up. Because a lot of the time, the bosses had back-to-back meetings or they were moving around and appearing so busy that they only put in brief appearances in their offices here and there. These women were putting out fires, but I saw that they were winging it most of the time because their bosses simply weren't telling them anything. They weren't telling them anything that would let them be able to do their jobs properly and be able to get back to these people who were trying to get interaction and support out of the U.S. government. So whenever these women managed to get off a call, soothe the person, and maybe buy 3 more weeks because before they're supposed to check back with the person, they'd go, whew, and they would sit and they would just stare into space for a minute, and then they would press another lit up button on their console, and they would pick up the next ringing telephone. However, the second scene that was happening in the back of this front scene was the more important scene. And it was a scene that I could not see in pristine clarity. The scene was there, but I said that always because these types of dreams concerning the American government, for some reason, they come with so much warfare. And that's obvious because Satan would not want any human being on the earth who was able to sit down and just say, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, and God has showed me that it's this. Because if there's one thing that the enemy hates on earth, it is a spiritually working eye. There's a lot of people, God gives them dreams, they can't remember it, they can't recall it, and that's because their spiritual eye is shut. In prophecy, dreams and visions are two of the most powerful revelation gifts that God will give people. And Satan despises the present of that gift, because that gift is able to speak out things that the enemy and the kingdom of darkness would kill to keep quiet. So this dream was, it was just shrouded in darkness, but I still saw it. And you can hear what the second background dream behind the first one of the busy scene, so much activity, so much effort, we're doing this, we're working hard for America. This is what was happening in the background. It was a darker scene because it was taking place in a theater that had almost all the lights down. All the house lights were down. So this is the lights that are over all the seating, that are over everything. Even backstage. Backstage has its own form of lighting, but even backstage was dark and there were people there. The only place that was lit up was the stage. Only the stage was lit up. Backstage and the seating area, all the rest were dark. So it was very hard to see people's faces. All I could see is this is a man and this is a woman. Also, it was impossible to see people's faces because every single person was wearing a mask. Every single person who was in that auditorium participating in the casting call was wearing a mask. Some of the mask was the floppy rubber type that thieves, and also, I don't know, there's a new type of mask now that people are buying that is very much the same to human beings. You can hardly tell. And I think these masks were first debuted to the American public through the Mission Impossible movies, with Tom Cruise just pulling off mask after mask and things like that. And so it was also used in the movie Face Off, the fake face that is put over people. So they were wearing the floppy rubber masks. Some of them were wearing these very avant-garde and not often seen in Western culture type of mask that is called kabuki mask. Kabuki theater is a type of very sobering and sometimes highly exaggerated Japanese theater, and the masks that go with it are at the same time beautiful but sometimes graphic and maybe even scary. When a kabuki theater troupe has a story that includes the dragon, the mask that the dragon comes out wearing will be so elaborate in very unearthly colors like electric green or all red or all blue with fangs and horns and everything like that. So it's a very expressive type of theater, and some of the people on the stage were wearing kabuki theater masks. And there were other types of masks like masquerade mask and fancy dress ball masks, the type that just cover the eyes with little bedazzlement, perhaps feathers coming off the mask, and then you can tell this is a woman, and then perhaps it has, a straight long chin with a false beard, and then that's a man in that mask. And so that's how it was. The only person that I was able to recognize in this dream, because of her hair and because of the style of dress, the cream tan pantsuit, was Kamala Harris. She was the only person that I recognized because she was wearing the same clothes from when I saw her in the White House. And so this stage that was lit up, it had X's. It had X's all over the main stage. And the X's marked the spot where every actor present on stage or who would be coming on was supposed to stand. So the whole stage was marked off XXX. And these X's would move according to the various scenes. So I did not see anyone coming onto the stage and then taping a new X when you want someone to stand here or there. The X's just moved by themselves according to the scene that would come next. The X would suddenly change, and then you would see people coming on to stand on their spot and act. Whoever was meant to be on stage at a certain time came on. Some of them were standing at the bottom of the stage. So you've seen this in school plays. In school plays, it's not really a brainer. It's a no-brainer. And so sometimes for a certain scene, the children come and line up right in front of us and we see them. But when you go to adult plays, people work very hard. If there's an actor who's supposed to enter in from among us, Usually they will try very hard to keep that actor. He may be even sitting in the crowd, but he will wear a cloak, or she will wear a cloak over her clothes until it's time for her to be an amazing fairy. And then when she pops up, it takes all of us by surprise. But this play was quite simplistic, and the actors, some of them were standing right in the front on both sides of the stage. And then when they were needed, they would suddenly jump on the stage, go up the steps, and stand on their X's and begin to act. Some of them were backstage waiting for their cues, coming in from the left wing or the right wing. And I saw that these people had been rehearsing this play so well that the play actually went quite smoothly. There were very few times that the director had to say cut. I didn't see the director. He was the only person that was sitting in the seats besides me, who was sitting at the back, so far back that the director did not know that I was there. I was viewing from the back behind him. And they had been doing this play for so long that the play actually was going quite well. Whatever it is that they were supposed to be acting, they were very good at it. He very rarely had to give stage direction and say, no, I would prefer if you do this and this, let's do it again. So it ran smoothly for the most part. And whenever he wanted them to move into a certain scene, he would yell something and clap only once. He would yell what he wanted them to do and clap only once, and then he would lean back and watch them do it. And then everyone would move to their X and start to act in a very weird and exaggerated way. So let's say it's the Secretary of State and, I don't know, somebody else. They are acting and using their hands so graphically to show that they're having a simple conversation. And that's because this play is taking place with no words. So if one is apparently saying something to the other, he's nodding his head because his mask doesn't move. Some of the masks had, I'll get to the masks. They're nodding their heads to show, I agree with you. And then if, for instance, the conversation says something that is preposterous, then the person who is reacting goes and throws up their hand and goes, no, 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 and moves the hand, no, 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 like that. So they're doing this very weird and exaggerated type of acting to communicate. And Kamala Harris's mask was a kabuki mask. So it was one that was very expressive. Kabuki masks do not have relaxed or hard to interpret expressions. They are very easy to see the emotion that has been painted on that usually expensive or porcelain face. And so her mask was blue, and it was not a full blue. The base of the mask was white, but then it had these beautiful blue designs on it, beautiful lines and swirls and different patterns in blue with a big downturned mouth. The mouth of her mask was turned down into disappointment and sadness. And this big blue mouth was so prominent that the primary signal from every scene that Kamala Harris was participating in was sad, sad. But behind the mask, this woman was perfectly okay, and she was totally happy because every time that they were on break, you could hear her laughing, that very distinctive laugh behind the mask. I again state, everybody was masked. Every single person, the lights guy, the stage guy, the music guy, the guy who comes and wheels props on and takes the props off. Nobody's face was visible, and therefore it was so odd to me to see that every time they were on breaks, they suddenly began to talk to each other normally. Sound would fill the auditorium. People would be talking and going, ha, 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 yeah, I know what you mean. They'd be talking, and then the break would end. Action. Complete silence, and then all of a sudden you're watching this Abbott and Costello level of acting. Coom, coom, coom. Somebody's walking in like, I need to talk to you. And there's this point and everything. You're looking at this Charlie Chaplin level of surprise when something shocking is apparently said by the other character. And I'm sitting in the back and I'm thinking, what type of clownery is this that these grown government people are doing? And that is how the dream ended. The dream ended just like that. And this is what the Lord said to me, and I've written it down for your understanding because the dream itself is quite clear as I have explained it. The American government is in a state of pandemonium. The new world order is soon to be revealed, and the preparations for it have reached fever pitch. Nothing is what it appears. And the players are now in position, waiting for their names to be called so that they can come to the forefront and deliver their lines. Mark that you are not fooled, for you will be deceived by the things you see happening around you so fast that you won't be able to keep up with them. Things will go so fast that even my people will not be able to relate. Keep your eyes on me through the maelstrom, or you will not make it, my people. The era is ending. The players are ready to begin a new game. In the name of the Lord, keep my peace and keep your eyes on me. I am the deliverer that you need through the storm. And so you are hearing a dream that in truth should not be surprising to anyone. No one who is actually praying to God will be surprised to hear that the freedom that America has marketed to the entire world is a lie. America has marketed to the entire world that she is a nation that is very much in control of how she operates within the tenets of democracy. America is a free republic that has managed to convince everyone that she is standing firm and tall, that her money is strong, her people are strong, her government is strong, democracy is strong, freedoms and civil liberties are strong, and nothing could be further from the truth. The country is in a visible state of decay, and it has become an object of mockery even to the weak. Countries that still borrow money from America also freely laugh at America in the comment section of any topic that you might want to discuss on the internet. America is not looking good. America is not looking healthy. Her social climate is splitting into very sharp separations between color, between gender, between various types of sexuality that have sprung up in the country. And in the midst of all this, God is saying that the government of the day is sitting like a bullfrog and preparing for a show that the American people, by and large, don't see coming and will not like. I did not show you the picture that I had for you to understand. Kamala Harris's mask was like this. It was very, very, very aggressively sad. However, the person behind the mask was not sad at all. She was quite happy. She was very jovial, actually. And as I said, the one person who was not at practice for the play was President Joe Biden. He was nowhere to be seen in the White House, and he was nowhere to be seen while other prominent members of government were all at this casting call performing on stage. And so God is telling you that this nation is masked. It's performing a skit for you. And the visible skit in the front is to give an image of severe busyness. Actively involved in, we're working on this, and President Biden is working with this interest group, and he's working to put this forward, and he's working on the border, and he's working on everything, except that God is saying that with actual work and with actual working, this man is nowhere to be seen at all. In addition to the president not having a very prominent role, what God is showing is that the vice president seems to have a prominent role. People are calling from the outside, obviously, because they can't see what's going on. And they're asking for both of them to do, I guess, presidential and vice presidential duties. But the only person that God is showing a presence here is the presence of Kamala Harris. And that presence is, for the time being, aloof. It's non-engaging. In real life, Americans often mock Vice President Kamala Harris for their own reasons, and they say that she doesn't make enough public appearances, which is just as fine because she will not be competent enough to answer the questions and things like that. And this woman, in honesty, often seems to fumble when she is in the public eye. God is showing that behind the scenes, people are seeking her input, seeking her involvement, and she is not giving it, but she is still holding visible power in the White House. Please understand that no matter what your personal feelings are, prophecy has nothing to do with how you feel, how you vote, who you support, or what you think my motives are when I'm sitting here. I sit here to represent the truth of the Lord Jesus Christ, and no matter how people feel in their various ways, what will be is everything that I'm saying, because everything that I'm saying is everything that is in truth. They are what God is revealing. And Vice President Kamala Harris is going to one day be the president of the United States. And at the time she becomes president of the United States, God has said that it will happen in a way unexpected to people. And God has said that by and large, even when the nation is celebrating and the women especially are taking it as a win, at that time that you see Vice President Kamala Harris ascending to power, my role and my message has always been, America, when she comes to power, you have entered the New World Order. She is a New World Order president. And when she comes to power, automatically know that the cage door that is barely open now, it's 99% of the way shut. When Vice President Kamala Harris takes the seat in this nation, God says to tell you, America, that you have been absolutely captured to the beast system and that you will be crushed within the iron claws of the beast system. And so God is saying that the U.S. government is actually in a state of upset. Pandemonium actually just means that nobody knows where the car keys are. Nobody knows where the dog is. Nobody knows how to set the alarm system. And this family is obviously going to miss its flight. Pandemonium means no order. It means chaos. It means that nobody is the visible head, the shot caller, who can put things in order. And therefore, a great mess is in progress. God is saying that in the midst of this pandemonium, the New World Order is birthing itself. And I have always told you here, making no bones about it, that in order for the new world that is coming after to be born, the old world that you are used to and cling to and identify with has to die. That old world was stabbed in its neck in 2020, and most people sat there and watched the stabbing and believed all the propaganda that was on TV telling them that normal was coming back. We're just working on something here. They absolutely were working on something here, and now we are in the stage where we're about to see the something, and we will not like it in any means. It is fever pitch preparation at this point. This is what the Lord says. The you-know-what, the NW final letter, is going to be revealed, and the preparation for it has reached fever pitch. When something is at fever pitch, it means that everything is ready for the bridal shower, and now it's just to bring the girl of the day in and surprise her with the setup and yell surprise. It means that everything is ready, and to make sure that everything rolls out on time, everyone is working feverishly. Everyone is making equal sacrifices. Nobody is sleeping. Everybody is available to respond to an email at 3 a.m. because everybody, at least who has knowledge of what is about to be birthed, is available and operating sacrificially, because I've always told you that these people are more interested with the birthing of Satan's kingdom than they are with the continuance of God's world where you can still have churches, God's world where little boys and girls are taught that a proper home is one mother and one father and not any of the other aberrations that currently are being pushed through the LGBTQ and the trans agenda. God's world where drag queens should not be doing the splits in front of babies. God's world where abortion is a sin. Bestiality is a sin, not a lifestyle preference. Pedophilia is a sin, a crime and a sin, not an attraction. God's world is going to be sacrificed in order that Satan's world be born. And in Satan's world, you will see a whole new set of laws, a whole new set of leaders standing and wearing masks. And then they will take them off when they have established themselves. Don't expect them to come into power and rip them off and say, right, off to the camps you go next week. No, the word is insidious, to slowly introduce something. Insidious is known to all of us by its other ID, the boiling frog. Everybody knows the boiling frog analogy. This frog has been toasting for quite a while. The frog of the United States has been toasting in what she thinks is warm bathwater for quite a while. But they will up the ante, and God says that the players are in position and they're waiting for their name to be called so that they can come to the front and deliver their lines. Delivering their lines looks like your TV going on and you being told that mandates are coming back. That's what line delivery looks like. It looks like being told that Governor Kathy Hochul won the lawsuit after all. After all the back and forth and all the we will not comply and all the this and that, she won. So delivering their lines looks like various announcements, various proclamations that you can expect to see in the future, various this and that will slowly erode the few rights that we do have left until life is very different. And God is saying that people should not be fooled by what they see, because if they believe the things that they see, they will be deceived by the things that will be happening around them so fast that they won't be able to keep up. And God says that even the church of Jesus Christ, this means even the church that is practicing discernment, that is praying and fasting to edify itself, to stay close to God, to say, oh God, please help me not to be somebody who loves lies and liars and the lies that they tell. God says that things will start to move so fast in America that even true Christians, who are already so few, will find it very hard to relate to the reality that they will be living in. And he says that the best solution for that is to stop trying to keep up with everything and fix your eyes on him. Keep your eyes on me through this maelstrom that is coming. A maelstrom is a very, very negative portent. If you're one of those suspicious people who are practicing the occult, some of them would even relate it to the evil eye and everything that it represents. A maelstrom is just a whirlwind of bad luck, a whirlwind of every single thing just going wrong. It can be very overwhelming. It can be very difficult to go through. And it's very hard to go through a maelstrom of events without suffering losses of some kind. God says that if we do not keep our eyes on him, we won't make it. So he couldn't have put it more blunt. I hope you don't hear any verse that says the reckless love of God. He says, keep your eyes on me. That's your job. That's your responsibility, to bring your fears to me and to overcome the fears. You are not just supposed to say, I'm so scared, and then leave it like that. Every sentence has a full stop at the end. Those who feel fear, it's your job to wrestle that fear with faith, to work on your faith until you come to the flat plateau resting place where you say the things that are happening and the things being prophesied are surely scary, but I will put my trust in God. God says that whoever is not keeping their eyes on him is not going to make it. And when he says, you will not make it, my people, that means that he's not even speaking to those who are moving in unbelief, moving in mockery, and saying that everything is a false prophecy. He's speaking to the people who actually believe him. People who believe God are the people who are his people. You that disbelieve, you are not the people of God. You are the sons and daughters of another Lord, small Lord, who comes from below. And at the proper time, he will come and gather all of you who affiliate with him through your thoughts, your deeds, your actions, and what is actually inside your heart towards the true people of God and the true word of God when it is spoken. So God says we've come to an end, the end of an era, and the players are ready to begin a new game. You can't expect it to be a game of fairness. Satan is not fair. You can't expect it to be a game of kindness. I have always prophesied here that we are going into an era where blood is going to soak the roads of the United States. Camps are going to crop up. People are going to be subject to search and seizure, unfair accusations. The era of the snitches, snitch and tell, snitch and sell your family member out for money, for social credit score points, is coming. Lies will be told. You will either go on the run to protect your life, to protect your wife's life, or if you think that you can stand and rely on the old mechanisms of the old America, read me my Miranda, I want my lawyer, I want my one phone call, I have the right to a fair trial, I have the right to be judged by a jury of my peers. The jury of peers will be replaced by a kangaroo court. Everything you say will be struck down. You will be called a liar. Fake evidence with deep fake AI will be brought. Your face will be put on some kind of false body and you will say, that's not me. And then they will play the tape and 100% it will be you, even though it's not you. Falsely accused, falsely imprisoned indefinitely, lost from among the living, no explanation given to your family whatsoever. I have always said, America, that you that uses the term regime shall become the greatest regime, and at the worst possible time. You will become the greatest regime that has ever been seen at a time where everybody has a phone, everybody has a platform, everybody has a podcast, and the North Koreans will be making podcasts about the land of the free and the home of the brave. God says to keep your eyes on him, and that is how you will keep your peace. For I am the deliverer that you need through the storm. I'm Celestial, and this is the Master's Voice. The Master's Voice can be found at www.the-masters-voice.com. The majority of the prophecies are there. At some point, I will put the rest up. But if you don't believe them in video, I doubt that you will believe them when they're written down. The prophecy you're listening to is called Cameo, June the 12th, 2024, an exposure of the United States government system, that it is not single, it is bifurcated, and not bifurcated into two parties. It is split between a visible government and an invisible government that actually is responsible for the daily life that we experience. God bless you, and until I see you again, goodbye.